Welcome back to the Learner's Lounge, the podcast where we help high schoolers connect with college alumni and current students from prestigious universities. For today's episode, we have with us an undergraduate at the prestigious Duke University, who was also accepted to other reputed universities like Dartmouth, UCLA, the University of Michigan, and many more. Can you please briefly introduce yourself, including your name, major, and your education journey?
Hey, I'm Shourya. I'm a rising senior at Duke. I'm currently pursuing a BS in econ with finance concentration and a AB in global cultural studies along with an English minor. So I've really been I think college has been a really interesting experience for me. It has really helped me figure out what I really wanted to do. I entered college as a chemical engineer, and I've really traveled across the spectrum of courses to finally figure out what I really enjoy. And I think college has really enabled me in that mission.
How would you describe the academic rigor and challenges that you face at Duke?
I think I largely underestimated what the academic rigor at Duke would be. I think being in India, the constant rhetoric you hear is the focus is more about getting into a university than actually excelling at one or even surviving at one. And a lot of the times when you're actually looking at universities, the perception through popular culture derives that sort of an image where you imagine it to be like a party school or something where you would not have to work as much. But I think my experience has been very to the contrary in terms of how much academically challenging university education can be. You have readings upon readings every day, homeworks, assignments. It's like truly a challenging experience in terms of the amount of work you have to crunch into like a small window of time. But I definitely feel that it, although it keeps you on your toes, it really allows you that sense of comfort once you're finally done with all that you're supposed to do and have those couple of hours late in the evening where you can be with yourself.
Right, right. So as you said, Duke is like a really academically rigorous university, but once you find a comfort at what you do, you'd grow to love it. So, what is the most interesting class you've taken, or the professor you have encountered at Duke?
I think there've been a bunch of classes if I were to think about that. I took a class on financial derivatives. That was a grad seminar that I took in my junior year. And that was a truly interesting class because most of the people present there were actually master's students, and I was just one of the few undergraduates in that class. And a lot of what was happening in that class was outside the theoretical concept. It was actually stuff to do with how what actually happens on the street in terms of how trades are conducted, how the reality of being on a trading desk and actually executing these complex transactions, understanding how markets function. So that was definitely a very enriching experience for me. Another experience that I would think about is a literature class that I took about Foucault. So Foucault is like this French epistemologist, and he talks a lot about the connection between educational systems, prisons, and psych wards. And I think that was a very interesting sort of way for me to figure out how power operates in confined spaces like that. So, like a sociological study of how power functions. So, I really enjoyed taking both those classes at U.
Yeah, I think taking a finance class and a literature class are two such diverse topics to actually engage with. So, what extracurricular activities did you participate in high school, and how did it help you with your admission to Duke?
So, I think so. For my high school, I went to Doom. So, as people might know, living in a boarding school, you have a lot of activities going on. And my school really stressed upon the idea of every kid having to do one sport and one co-curricular and being good in academics to have like this all-rounded sort of a personality. And that was a huge like impetus very early on. Like maybe I was in grade 7 or 8, and it was always the idea was to kind of just explore yourself in multiple fields. So while I was in school, I was really into debating and quizzing, and those were the activities that I really enjoyed. I would debate across both languages, Hindi and English, and I was really into writing and reading. So I would work with the publications, and I would actually be spending a lot of my time reading and actually producing content like that. So I would write and I would do things. So that was like that took a bulk of my time. I was also into shooting. So I was like an international level shooter while I was at Doom, and I was also involved in just a lot of house activities and the things that you would do just while staying in it, so like community engagement projects, house council leadership roles, just being there and present with the community while being there. So I think that took a lot of my time while I was in school. And I think those things really prepped me up for living in a community. And when I moved to college, it didn't really seem as if I was like I was out of water. So I was constantly in a zone where I felt comfortable.
So, what are some of the unique challenges or obstacles as a student at such a prestigious university uh, did you face, and how did you solve them? My question is.
I think for me, the biggest challenge is coming to terms with the fact that the prestige of the university has no bearing about the direction of my journey. I think a lot of the times when you're examining things from outside, we are too focused on the labels of things. Like a Harvard would look like a Harvard, or like a Duke would look like a Duke, or like a Yale would look like a Yale from the outside, and you would be focused on the brand name and the value that the brand name brings. But being in a US college setting, and I have friends all across different universities, which means I would end up traveling a lot to different universities and stay with them. So what I realized is that once you're inside a university, it's a completely different journey. It doesn't matter what the university is and what prestige it brings, and the challenge of just surviving inside, I think actually constitutes of a kind of regularity that people are not really used to. So I remember I sat for this really nice job interview once. It didn't really go that well, but I sat for it. And we talked about why, employers look at college graduates and why a college degree actually matters. And someone really had an interesting take to that. They were like, people don't really need to know what you studied in college. They don't even expect that the things that you picked up in college, even skills or knowledge, would actually help you do a job. But just the fact that you completed a college degree means that you showed up in a space continuously for 4 years. And for 4 years, every semester, you made the choice independently without anyone's coercion of actually being in a space and doing that academic challenge. And that shows that you're a person who can stick to something. And I think just being in a university, you constantly get you have to find your own motivation. You have to find your own footing as you go along, and just that process of constantly showing up for the things that you're passionate about really defines a college experience in my eyes.
Yeah, I think as you said, what the college offers and what the culture is like is way more important than the name that is attached to the university. So, what role do extracurricular activities in college play in your overall experience at you?
I think I would say extracurricular activities almost misled me into believing something very different about college. So like when you're studying in India, a lot of the times grades and true academic work, not just doing stuff and like just completing your classwork and doing your homework, doing well in your classes, but just truly in the depth of academic engagement is compromised for curricular activities. And a lot of the curricular activities in school are more to do with a certain kind of you know presentation and representation of oneself than like just the academic aspect of it. Like you have like the curriculars existing as an island outside of the academic. In college, I don't think that's the case. Most of the curricular activities revolve around either culture or actually academic stuff. So you would have like research programs or paper presentations or symposiums, and those curricular activities will be revolving around like took like educational programs, and they would be heavily tied to them and interconnected. You would have, say, international relations people would host their international relations like MUN sort of conferences, but those would be really connected to the stuff that they're learning in classes and the complexity of it. I think in India what happens is education becomes kind of bifurcated into, and in college I kind of was able to figure out how to unite the two forces and kind of see them as one aspect of the whole. So I think that was something that really college kind of helped me understand that just focusing on stuff that you're good at and passionate about academically is definitely the most important thing in terms of just surviving in a college environment.
All right. So, what is the campus culture like at you? Are there any particular traditions or events that define the student experience?
Okay, so Duke is a big basketball school, and like we are really into basketball and everything about it. So US has, at least a lot of the US has NCAA, which is like a intercollegiate championship where different colleges compete with each other. So Duke in the South is one of the biggest basketball schools, and they've gone on to win the basketball championship a few times. So when we have the basketball season on, then just tickets to that basketball game has a lot of rituals around you. So just to get into the stadium, you have to camp outside the the stadium for 6 weeks. So there's an official queue system where people get tents and they go inside the tents and they camp out for 6 weeks to get those tickets. And the line monitors assign that make sure that no one is actually cutting the line. So the tents have rules. So if you're an 8-person tent, you have to have 2 people there every night and 6 people there present through the day. So you have constant checks and balances. And if you're not really on time, you're kicked off the line. So at the end, only the few people who survive get the tickets. And if Duke wins that game, then they burn benches on campus. And it's like a huge party and a fest. So it's like a very, very hard basketball school. So I think that's a very good experience for me, just to have like an affiliation and actually feel the aspect of belonging to a school and belonging to a place. Other than that, Duke is also a very southern school. So it's like down in the south. So it has a very suburban sort of a surrounding around it. So like once you step outside, you after a few miles, this just countryside that begins. Like 20 minutes driving out, you start seeing like cows and sheep. There's a town close by. Like it's not exactly a small town, but it's like a mid-sized southern city. So it has a very interesting, hospitable, very calm, very composed vibe. And Duke has a massive estate. They have like 7,000 acres of forest and land all across the campus. So it's a very big campus culture. Everything happens in campus. All classes happen in campus. So everyone really has to have that bonding experience. And because they kind of, for undergraduates, the first 3 years, you're compulsorily required to live on campus. So everyone is just interacting with each other constantly, and that produces a really energetic experience.
Yeah, I think Duke sounds like a really interesting place that anyone would want to, be in. But for the more academic side of things, does Duke offer any unique opportunities for internships, research, or study abroad programs? And if so, did you participate in any, or do you plan to participate in any of these experiences?
Okay, so I think in terms of research, I just came back from the campus and I was working on this research. So it is interdisciplinary. So they was looking at medical economics of like abortions. So like I definitely have involved myself in research projects. In terms of study abroad, I think that's an interesting line for me to walk because the first 2 years of my college experience was in COVID. So much travel wasn't happening. So there was not really a question of traveling much. And by the time I came into my third year and fourth year, I kind of came up with the realization that I'm already abroad while being at Duke. So for me to just study abroad in a third country seems like a bit of a stretch in any ways. So I definitely don't see myself doing study abroad. And I have like a nice set of friends on campus and I'm comfortable there. So I would not just would like to walk out of the scheduling. But I definitely see myself getting involved more in like research projects and other things going forward. And something I would definitely recommend anyone who's interested in looking at Duke to do is like program two, which is like this major that Duke provides where you can design your own curriculum. So there are a lot of Duke offers like 50, 60 majors to incoming undergraduates. And if people are still not happy with the ones the choices offered, they can just enroll in program two and make their own major. So they can sit with an advisor. You could assign them a particular like a dedicated advisor, and they would sit with them and they would create their own courses as they would do in the next 4 years. And through those courses, they can just design what they want to study. So, for example, you could study mathematics and Picasso at the same time, or you could study mathematics in Picasso at the same time, and you can make a degree around it. And as soon as you can, as long as you can get a campus approval, so like a committee of 3 or something sits and approves it, they approve most theses, and you can just plan your entire college journey around whatever you want to do. So it's really something which is fun and quirky. Another thing which is fun and quirky is house courses. So house courses is when you just let students teach classes. So I've actually taught 3 of them. I was really into it. I really like the teaching instructional aspect of it. So you could just propose a course and you could just go and teach it. And it would be a half credit class. So anyone who wants to take that class can take it. It happens once a week in the evenings. You would have students come in. It's like a pass fail class. So there's no really grades for it. It's just pass or fail. But you can just sit, relax, have fun, and like have those discussions. So I taught a class on like Bollywood lyrics and Indian history. So looking at Bollywood lyrics from the 50s to now and seeing how they represent Indian history. I know people who've taught classes on Taylor Swift, on Duke culture, on secret societies at Duke, cryptocurrency, real estate. You can just pick a topic and just get it approved, and you can take these classes completely student run, and there's no intervention whatsoever. with what you're doing. So you could take one, you could teach one. It's just a very interesting space to be in. All these undergraduates are sitting together and having that afternoon, discussion. We laugh, we make fun. At the same time, we're learning together. So I think that's a really interesting space to be in.
Right. As you said, Duke is academically rigorous, and all the students have to be comfortable if you're staying at the campus for 3 years. So, what are some of the best hangout or study spots in and around campus at Duke?
I think I would definitely recommend every place around VU and the library. So VU is the food area on West Campus, and West Campus is where most people stay. So it has really nice bay windows and places a bit and nooks and crannies where you can just sit and work. And I really enjoyed that. Another good place to work is the Gothic Library. So it's like this rare book and manuscript section in the library, and they have like a silent reading room. Like no one is allowed to talk there, and it is like this massive grand room, which was I think a ballroom or something back in the day, where students can just sit and work. And I think it's really peaceful and quiet. So I would definitely recommend people to go and study there. I think for group studying, people, if they want to really just talk with friends, work some, talk some, then definitely there are cafes on campus that you could go to. You go to Pitchforks, or you could go to Bayous. Those are the places where you could have those first places.
Yeah, I think environments like those would probably make the hard part of studying a little bit better. So, for our last question, what advice would you give to current or aspiring students who want to attend Duke or similar universities?
I think definitely I would advise them to not really to actually see college for what it is. I think college is 4 years of your life where you can actually redefine yourself, reshape yourself. And while being inside a university, you should realize the scale that these universities provide. Like, for example, Duke has an endowment of $13 billion. That is twice the amount of money Indian Union government spends on all education in this country, schools, primary schools, all the schools and universities. That is twice of that. So Duke owns more money than what Indian government spends on education every year. So that's the scale of these universities. Harvard owns 8 times the amount of money that Indian government spends on education every year. And these are very big scales if you think about it. Even small universities, which kind of seem small or seem like small state schools, have ample resources to for anyone to use. There's no situation in which you can exhaust your research funds, or you can exhaust your library, you can exhaust all the opportunities your college offers. So I think more important than just getting into a space is getting yourself into the mental space so you can learn. And I think for a person who wants to learn, just getting into a nice university that offers you these resources is more than enough. You can find your way once you're there.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that Duke or similar universities would provide amazing resources for their students on campus. So thank you so much for being here with us today and giving us valuable insights on the college application process. I'm sure it was immensely helpful to everyone watching this as well.
And for everyone watching, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on Instagram @LearnisLounge. Stay updated on future episodes. Until next time, take care and keep learning.